Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today, we are doing chapter 4 of The Technician's Fight. Gralgiran stood before the Earther, seated on the other side of the table. He had accommodated her by providing flat seat with straight back. Jeremy had pretended some in these early days living with him, until he'd gotten used to the bowl shape. The psychologist sat to his right at the table or tablet on it, while he wore a lens so he could keep his hand behind his back. Name, he asked. It wasn't the first time she'd been asked since being captured, and based on the previous responses, he had an idea what to expect. How about go fuck yourself? You identify your species as Earther, correct? Go miss fuck yourself? The miss had been advised by the psychologist, an Earther term that related to the female being in or out of a relationship. She stared at him and took a second to get over the surprise. Human, furball. Human is a species internal reference. Like I give a fuck what you people call me. I call you by the name you told me is yours, miss. Go fuck yourself. She had to look up to glare at him. Well, let me guess. You get off on looming over the poor little humans like you capture. I stand because that is where a leader belongs. You've had other Earthers. I've had other Earthers on my ship, and I did not feel the need to loom over them. Miss, go fuck yourself. It's Allison! It's fucking Allison McMartin! Shorter than he'd like. But she was an Earther, and he could deal with it for the duration. Thank you, Miss Allison McMartin. Your species is being marked as Earther as the Federation equivalent of what you refer to yourself internally. Is that agreeable with you? If I say no, what are you going to do about it? Tack on fur and call me a cat? You do not meet any of the requirement to be accepted as Kelsirian citizen. But if being an Earther is not something you desire, steps can be initiated to find a species willing to accept you as theirs. You people are impossible, she hissed. So you agree to being identified as an Earther as the Federation equivalent? Of course I fucking agree. Age. You fucking serious? Medical identifies you as per using Earther biological file as being in your late 30s. I'm 33, she glowered. And you just made that up to get me to tell you. No. When you were checked for injuries and treated, you were scanned. Because you are Earther, I was able to get permission to have medical use the information your species provided us when we were shepherding them within the Federation, even if its truthfulness is now in doubt. It had found her to be in reasonable health for her species. Taking into account pirates didn't usually have the best diet, since they needed to make do with what they could steal until they were able to reach one of the few stations willing to ignore what they were so they could sell what they had stolen and buy supplies. There were only 3 of them at the edge of Kelsirian space, and only because knowing where the pirates had to go to resupply meant it was easier to keep track of them and remove those who were becoming too much of a problem. Unfortunately, they didn't have jurisdiction within other species' borders, and not all of them were as strict with what they'd let pirate get away with. Sharing a border with the Tahornian made keeping track of those particularly difficult. How long have you been part of the pirate crew? She smirked. Didn't your scan tell you? The psychologist moved a claw on her tablet, then 2-3 years at most appeared before him. That was longer than he expected. He knew Earthers had been finding asylum within the Federation well before he found Jeremy, but for one to become a pirate so far back implied the Earther had been better at hiding the Earthers, that's going to be plural, because this is referring to a species, had been better at hiding what they did than any of them thought. That, or they had let their criminals go with more ease than their citizens. If she had been planted to cause them problems through the pirates, the psychologist would have already picked up on it, which meant he couldn't use getting answers to those questions as a meat to whet her appetite for freedom. When your crewmate expressed a desire to sell technician Jeremy Bradshaw to the Earthers, you were against it. Have you dealt with them? She asked. Yes. Then why the fuck do you even need to ask me why? I understand why they would be at risk in that encounter. Nothing in the interaction we've documented since you and the rest of your pirates crew indicates you care about what happens to them. With having been part of their crew for 2 years, that leads me to think the camaraderie that can be considered one of the redeeming factor to pirates was never your intent. They were a means to an end. Our surprise at him mentioning the time frame gave way to anger. To get as far from that fucking border as I could, but those assholes just wouldn't go anywhere else. Just wouldn't go anywhere else. Our territory, they kept saying. Like, we should be limiting ourselves to one patch of space when there's so much of it. They most likely intended it in the form of not getting any further from the one station in the area that would take them in. Why do you want to get away from your people? A silent glower. With a message from the psychologist, he continued. Are Earthers purposely allowing their criminals to escape to their territory and into ours? Silence again, but worried this time. She might not know. Worried she'd been allowed to leave instead of doing so through her own cunning. The reason didn't matter. Who do you want me to contact on Earth to arrange for your return to them? Are you fucking kidding me? There are systems in places that even the Earthers can't casually ignore since they are still seeking someone to shepherd them within the Federation. Family law empowers you to reach out to a family member, have them petition your government to take you back. I can't speak to how they will address your crimes, but she laughed, a bitter and angry thing. No family or none that she considers as such appeared. That complicated things. She'd already indicated she had no interest in being recognized as a different species. Captain, if I may, the psychologist said. Go ahead. Allison, please look at me. While your fear is understandable, it will not help you at this time. Take a breath. Think of something soothing, an image or a sound or a smell that brings you comfort. Good. The author followed along with the psychologist's instructions. Now, the situation you are in is not good, but it doesn't have to become worse. The captain's work here isn't to make you suffer, but your situation is complicated. She nodded to him. Allison McMartin, you are a pirate. The Federation has regulations in place that means that regardless of my people's desire to make pirates operating within our territory suffer our punishment for the crimes, I need to deliver them to a Federation station for them to be returned to their people so they can be prosecuted as per their rules. Earthers are not part of the Federation. This is singular. And because you have committed the crimes of piracy within Federation space, asking for asylum is not a possibility, even if persecution by your government led to you becoming a criminal. You are someone outside the Federation species. Unless you take step for your government to repatriate you, you fall under the laws of the species in which territory you committed the crime you were caught doing. You were operating within Kelsirian territory. You fall under our laws. You do not want to suffer the punishment we administer to criminals of your caliber. I encourage you to reconsider making a plea to your government. I know that some of the things they do are not good, but it will not be worse than you going to an incarceration center. By the paling of her skin, he had at least managed to impart the danger of remaining under Kelsirian jurisdiction. You don't have to make a decision now, the psychologist said, but you will need to make one. You need to know that if you choose to ask, I'm missing an O here. If you choose to ask one of the Federation species to make you theirs, their refusal will return you to us to be punished as our laws allow. This is not a system you can manipulate in the hopes of outplaying us. You get one chance. Either appeal to your government, select one of the Federation species and convince them to accept you, or be punished under our laws. Would anyone want someone like me? Piracy was one of the worst crimes someone could commit according to all but one species, and he implored Otimar Rashaterek to grant the psychologists the wisdom not to mention them. They would agree, he knew, but once the Earther disappeared within Terhornian territory, he dreaded what they might do. He'd seen what Terhornian's pirates were willing to do to their captives when they were outside their territory. Would they have limits within theirs, where there was no one to oversee their actions? We can provide you files on each species, she said, and you can study them. You may find one that would overlook the severity of your crimes if you can offer them something of worth in return. You have worth, Allison, she said. Regardless of what brought you here, of what you did, you have worth. Read through the files. Look for a species that can see that. They will still punish you, but it will be nothing as severe as ours would be. We are not a gentle people, Allison, when we are angered. She stood, and it was enough to tell him this was as much as they could hope for. He called the hunter. I need to settle on if I'm capitalizing the term or not. To escort the prisoner to her cell. I wish you hadn't offered the files. See, this is another one. The files for her to read. She won't ask her government. I can't tell you why, but her fear of them runs too deep. Could she hide that from you? He didn't know how strong of a mentalist the psychologist was, but he knew she was strong. He couldn't prevent her from finding out information if she set herself to it, and he had training to resist interrogations. She doesn't know why she's afraid. As best as I can tell, it goes back to her childhood and has been trampled by time, made into a formless cloud that covers any thought about Earth she has. I can't remove the Terhornians from those files, and our files on them will come with explicit warning of the kind of people they are. If she decides on them, it will be fully informed. Did you get anything that can mitigate her punishment? And Earther isn't made for the incarceration centers. I will send you my full report, but no. There was nothing I saw that she was coerced at any stage of the decision that led to the act of piracy she was captured for. She also doesn't have any intelligence on what the Earther government does to those like your heart. So she couldn't offer her as a source of information. What are the chances one of the species would accept her? The ears folding back didn't bode well. Her life has been fighting the authorities, a desire to remove herself from anyone who could tell her how she was expected to live her life. It does not make her someone who can easily adjust to others' way of thinking. She refused to warm to the rest of the crew she was part of, and there are no more lawless than pirates. If she had gained control of them, she might have been able to grow closer, but as the lone Earther, unless she was willing to have sex with those with an interest in the exotic, she would never gain the leverage to achieve control. Even if she had considered that, she wouldn't have done it. She is not xenophobic, but sex is not a tool for her. It's going to kill her, he stated. Hours after she's dropped off on that planet, and she's going to be dead. They are supposed to be so criminals learn there are worse things than being a functioning part of a society, but all we end up doing is sending people there to die. We are not a gentle people, Captain. She told them in the same gentle tone she told the Earther, especially when people go against our desires. And this concludes Chapter 4 of The Technician's Fight. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter will be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read this story, as well as the book before it, They are up on Ream Story. And if you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.